right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Vivy,
Fluorite
Fluorite
Song, episode 4. Alright.
Ooh, so,
Moida.
Yeah, there's been a murder.
And it was not so stellar.
No. Or it was, but, you know, what looked like it might have been a hug turned into more of like a head-wrenching off kind of operation.
Blue fluids everywhere.
Yep. And we also got like a potentially ominous flashback little image to like a dead bird that Estella might also have killed. Yeah.
Where was that?
It was like just for like a split second, but yeah. So if we end up getting anything with that in this episode, that would be interesting.
Oh,
but
I forgot about that then.
But we also have the younger sister of Momoka is here. So yeah, just increased stakes, no big deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Vivi, this is an interesting thing here, but you've got basically an AI that has reasons for murder,
Right.
but will extend potentially out to murdering many humans. That's something that you're going to need to, at the very least, parse out so that you understand it, so that when you go through with your mission, like on the long-term side of things, you actually can find a way to connect, with humans. Well, humans and AI.
And AI, right? And here's an AI that is a doozy of one.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone. Now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below. Then come back here for the discussion. All right. Sweet.
That was a good episode.
A little 2-episode mini arc here, giving us another kind of moment in time of humanity's history, as it were, but then also AI's history. And I love that the AI that was the kind of the focal point of the story, Estella, was a sister of Vivy's, but then by extension she had a sister that was one that was lost along the way, along the path of AI's evolution. There was a life that was abandoned and was considered to not be worth it.
Yep.
And in some ways, I feel like this mini arc feels almost like a microcosm of what could be like the entire show. That we have one version or two versions. Well, one version of an AI basically that saved a core group of humanity basically. And then another version of that AI that destroyed it, showing the potential of what AI can be.
Just like regular people.
Yep.
And that in this situation, from the previous couple episodes, the discussion of AI rights, right? That's something that's very important to have if you want to have any kind of equilibrium with them, because otherwise it'll be something where, okay, they must take their rights, basically, right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, singularity, all that stuff, you might not necessarily want them to develop too fast, but in this situation we had something where the coldness of humanity, right, where they treated this AI as just a machine, was what caused it to go crazy, right? Because then all of a sudden a human also then took pity on it, right, rescued it, granted for a specific purpose, but that completely turned the AI's life around.
Right. There was a nature and nurture argument on full display here, where the nature of Elizabeth was pure and specifically was one to be, a savior, a someone that would help humanity.
Right.
Well, she ended up doing that, but with the way that her first awakening moment was essentially getting discarded, and then being picked up by humans, however much time that was later.
Right.
Led to a whole bunch of chaos that could have been easily avoided. Thankfully, because of time-traveling superhero Vivy and Matsumoto, no people were killed from this, but some people did die. That's Stella and Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's right.
And that didn't need to happen here.
Right.
So on some level, I really like this because I think it's minor foreshadowing for Vivy's end, in that she will sing, and she will sing beautifully. and humanity will hear it, AI will hear it. It'll be this grand display, but it'll be on a burning, flaming stage collapsing to the earth with a finality to it, you know.
Gotcha.
I could very easily see this being a thing where, you know, there's a hope in that the message of what, you know, the lesson was with basically what Vivy and Matsumoto here are trying to do is basically that while the people are going to still potentially have the fear of, wait, this event happened and
as a
an
result
AI,
of AI, yeah.
Well, they don't know that. That's the thing.
Oh, right, because all
that.
the debris like burnt up on entry.
Yeah. Well, not only did all the debris burn up on entry, but during the whole event, all they were told was that there was engine problems, that there was some issues, and they're working to discover it. So they don't know.
That's true.
The only ones that
thank you for choosing Sunrise.
Exactly. That was the importance of the message at the end, was that it was followed by the song.
Right.
The song will put their message that they gave to them in their lasting memory, so that they'll be like, oh, the AI were even then at the final moments trying to do their best to make sure that we were calm, peaceful, and stuff.
And even had a pleasant experience, right? As you do a safety evacuation, right? Because hey, now you get to see the sunrise, you know, in a way that you wouldn't see it from up there.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah. It's brilliant, subtle writing. It's nice and efficient and quick. And I feel like it gets at what an AI would choose to do in this instance, because AI are efficient, quick, and choose the response that is the most like easily calculated to have the most like positive impact for their mission.
Right.
And that was just really cool.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, like AI can be used as this representation of like the best potential of humanity and also the worst potential of humanity, right?
Because they come to their conclusions immediately.
Yeah, and it tends to be binary, you know. But you know, you can have them be like, all right, keeping a level head in this situation, right, and staying behind to make sure that everyone's okay and all that stuff, right? Cool. That's the kind of thing that if it were a bunch of humans doing that, you'd be like, wow, what a, you know, like that's the hero way to do things, basically, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's just part of the job, right? You know, with the AI, right? But they still have to make that decision, and you know, and in the same way that the it's just part of the job that Elizabeth had, was you know, less pleasant, and you know, also orchestrated the end of, you know, other AI, right?
Right.
So
very true. Yeah.
The
members of Toke that were here though will know essentially what happened though. And that's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this, because one, they'll know that Vivy was there. Two, they'll be able to tell that based on the song and the message that was given at the end, that what they did changed. It didn't go the way they expected.
Yeah, Beth ended up actually, you know, like, I mean, theoretically an AI could probably sing and speak on the speakers at the same time, you know, if they just figured out how to do some programming stuff or whatever. I don't know. But, you know.
Yeah, like uploading the song itself from the memory that they
gained
from you know, specifically Estella or what have you.
Right.
But either way, it was powerful, it was emotional. The idea of not being able to tell who was singing, but then when you see, I believe it was Elizabeth on the left holding Estella on the right, it was Elizabeth's voice, or Elizabeth's mouth that was moving during the actual singing, showing that there was some kind of aspect of the shared consciousness that was reestablished, like the connection was reestablished.
Yeah, they were in harmony, if you will.
They were in harmony, yes, exactly. And I feel like that's, again, another really cool potential way of showcasing how Vivy will save the world, save humanity and stuff, is that she will be fully connected to not just the human side of her, but also the full potential of AI. Like that will be something that will be a powerful connection made there, not just in the act of singing, but something that will be launched from, like, and aid the singing. So so really, really cool stuff here. Also, hey, Yusuka. Sorry. I just want to say that Yusuka now knows.
Right.
Which is another person then that can not just become a super fan,
but
potentially
be a recurring character.
Have a lineage also of fans, you know.
Yeah, because this is one of the things that, like, with how the show's set up and everything, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah, you have characters that, are recurring, awesome, and in the case of an organization like Roke or Toke, it makes sense, right? Because it's like, yeah, they're against AI and all that stuff, and that makes for even more, fun conflict with the yes, AI are in conflict, but also humans are in conflict and all of that stuff, and but yeah, how long can they really stick around since this is going to be over the next 100 years, right? Like at some point, right, they're just going to be too old to conceivably make sense to be in the story, right?
Oh, yeah, unless they get fuel to basically make other people believe in their vision, mission, basically, as long as Vivy keeps succeeding, Toke will get weaker and weaker because it'll be farther away from their origin, and they won't necessarily get fuel to support the idea that AI are dangerous for humanity.
Yeah,
but
twice now you've been saved by AI, right? So
yeah, that's the weird thing though, is I don't know how they're going to spin the people were saved, thankfully no people were harmed. Was that due to AI, or was that due to like quick thinking? Like how will that be spun as a story in the public eye and in the historical sense?
Yep. Yeah. In the public eye, that'll be a bit more up in the air. But as far as that young dude, I don't remember the guy's name, but but he's now been saved twice by AI.
True.
First time it was Vivy, second time it was Elizabeth, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the I will not let you die here, right? And and nobody ended up dying, which wasn't necessarily Elizabeth, because she was saying the whole thing of let's just crash it into a city, which that's maybe going a bit far, right?
But I love that this happened here because this is a direct contrast to the way that the first little mini story happened, where the plane wasn't saved,
right?
And thus now, because these people were saved. And I believe this is a big deviation potentially. Now, I think that Matsumoto was basically like, no, this is cool. We want to save people. This is cool.
Because it's part of the mission and all that stuff. It's relevant to the timeline.
Right, but that means that people will exist in the future history
that did not
exist originally.
Yep.
And I will just say it. I'll just say it. There's been some cool time travel stories that I appreciate, and some of them are like no, we can't go back and save the Titanic because then all their descendants will exist in the future and dramatically change.
Yeah.
The effect of that there, So if hundreds of people here were saved, they then will have, hundreds of family and stuff, and will spread out from there. Yep. And given that there's only 85 years left, basically.
It's not going to be too big.
It's not going to be that dramatic, but it could be.
Right.
It could be.
And if you think about it, so there's Vivy uniting the world, right? Which means AI and humanity. But if you think about it, she also kind of has to unite the timelines. Now, not in a literal sense, right?
Definitely not in a literal sense.
The timelines are separate and all of that stuff. But we have one character in particular that is, the champion sent from another timeline in Matsumoto, right? And in episode 2, we had a display of where they see things very differently, and and as a result of that, they come into conflict, right?
Yep.
Now, granted, Matsumoto's mission is very important in everything, right? I'm not sure how she'll end up reaching Matsumoto necessarily, but
you mean in the present future?
Right. Like that.
Gotcha.
In my mind, if I were to see something as being like the true the true final
confrontation,
ultimate win, basically, it would be Vivy convincing Matsumoto, right? Because convincing AI in general right now, well, they're less advanced, and granted, they'll get more advanced as the story goes on and everything, right?
Right.
So maybe Matsumoto won't be that big of a deal by the time we get to like the 100 years in the future.
Yeah, I almost feel like the Matsumoto convincing is something that's happening by the nature of Matsumoto being the one sent back, and I feel like it's more about like general AI being convinced. Like AI is going to have on some point in the future some kind of super network that they tap into in order to have their glorious revolution, right?
Yep.
At that point, that
entity is the big kahuna.
Yeah, that collective, that's going to be the thing.
Sure.
And maybe Matsumoto is the the face of it. Maybe Matsumoto being sent back has this unintended ripple effect where it's like AI throughout the last 100 years have encountered these rapidly advanced, accelerated, versions of themselves, and they're this dark phantom through history, and
Yeah,
you know,
like-
and the collective unconsciousness of AI throughout these 100 years has been watching Matsumoto,
Right,
and,
like-
or Vivy or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a bit weird, but
No, but I think it really can get into some crazy territory because currently Matsumoto has been dealing with AI that are, generations older than him, right?
right.
And
So
not
it's no question.
no
that he can
question
overcome them. Yep.
that he can overcome them, but also that he won't be harmed by them, right? He will
sure.
not be convinced. And logic can be a form of virus. And,
I see what
and-
you're saying. That's a
and
good point.
I would not be surprised if the twist that ended up happening, because if you think about it, the AI going crazy has to, in some ways, you have to be able to trace the genesis back to their original missions that they were given, right? Unless they break so fundamentally that they veer from their missions, right? But even then, that would come from the desire of trying to achieve their original goal, right?
Sure.
Unless it was something where someone hacked them and the goal was changed, like anything like that, right?
Okay.
Then I could see something happening where Matsumoto, as time goes on, maybe ends up realizing that the AI have a point, right? And then you have to do the whole logic and emotion argument, right?
Yeah, I'll hold off on commenting on that
Yeah.
really, because I feel like it's definitely possible, but it's also in that weird area where it's well, then why not Vivy? Like, what makes Vivy special? Vivy has the exact
Sure.
same mission, but it's obviously not going to go that way with Vivy. Like this is the kind of story where thematically it makes perfect sense to have Vivy succeed in her mission, right?
Right.
Like the way they've set up the idea of hope,
Yep,
Like
yep.
I do not think this is going to be the depressing downer show
Totally.
where it's there is no hope for humanity, Vivy fails, it
Oh,
all
yeah.
ends in this way, or necessarily even the who knows kind of ending.
No, yeah, I think we're going to
maybe.
get a definitive, like, Vivy does the performance. and
Vivy
it's
does
awesome.
the performance and it's amazing.
Yep,
yeah.
it's amazing and it works,
Yeah,
right?
and in some ways, I feel like Matsumoto being some like twist villain kind of thing for a shock and awe kind of thing for like maybe the last few episodes or so. I think that's exciting as a way to have her performance be in the midst of the AI revolution, because I really think that could happen. I really think that could happen.
Right, you don't stop the Fire Lord before the comet arrives. You stop him once the comet arrives, and
In the
everything's
middle of it,
in the
where
middle of
everything
it.
is
Everything
burning,
is
it's
going to shit. Right,
crazy, yeah.
maximum tension and stakes, and
Yeah. I would see that more as an opportunity for maybe something similar to that, but not
Okay, yeah.
exactly that.
yeah.
Okay, but all in all, this episode was really efficient at getting the mini arc delivered to us in a nice simple package.
Yep.
But I really loved how pretty it was. There was a lot of
God, it
really
was
cool
gorgeous.
moments where they had just really good, just simple art, no like crazy animation with it, but just the Elizabeth just broken and in
Oh, yeah.
pieces and stuff, like melting almost in
Yep.
the rain.
The
That was crazy
the
good.
still images in this show are so damn good, and
Yeah,
there will be
when
like
they're good, they're really
they're
good,
they're
yeah.
real good.
And then
And then the action as
Yeah,
well.
what did you think about that animation style? Because basically it seemed like what they did was they were like, okay, we're going to have lots of little cuts of like a few frames basically, but then we're not gonna show the fluid full transition between there in order to save on, make it more efficient basically.
Yeah.
But it made things feel hyper almost choreographed in a way.
Okay.
Because then we got to see the stances and how it would
Right.
like it wasn't as fluid as it could be for sure, but it definitely felt like, oh, okay, someone who knew like how the body flows and martial arts and stuff like that just went to town with this.
Yeah.
But
It's-
we weren't able to get, of course, pure Sakuga or anything like
Right,
that.
yeah, I remember even like commenting on like, oh, it's so fluid, and then as I kept watching, I was like, oh wait, no,
actually
it's not
not.
really.
Yeah,
It's just really fast. And I
Yeah.
gotta say that's something that I appreciate, not the lack of fluidity, but the speed of it. Because when I usually think of like AI versus AI type stuff, I think like Terminator, or whatever, where you've got the robots fighting, and that's all kinds of old, right? So of course it wasn't gonna be fast back then.
Right.
But the idea that with these powerful robots, basically these powerful machines, of course they're strong, right? But the speed is the thing that's really uncanny, because it's the speed and the strength together that makes
Yeah.
them truly terrifying, right? And seeing it not be like any kind of like blurred animation, right? Like we actually get to see the movements and everything, and we're like, oh, okay, oh shit, like
Yeah,
the part
yeah.
where Elizabeth just does a kick against Vivy out of nowhere. That was terrifying. Like because you're like, okay, wait, something's not quite right. Because I think
she noticed the fact that Elizabeth did not have the bracelet.
Right.
Which was a very important thing that then Elizabeth later notices that Estella does have it.
Yep.
It causes her to remember, and then Vivy decks her. And the sounds of the voice of
so cool.
Elizabeth
that was
kind
awesome.
of shutting down in the midst of the virus taking over was so creepy and crazy and cool. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was great stuff.
But okay, if we have a bunch of 2-episode mini arcs, the OP gave us like a couple characters in addition to what was clearly Estella or Elizabeth, depending on your look at it. But if that's kind of the way that this goes, and we get a progressively more advanced sister of Vivy, like think about it, like the idea that they were all women in the OP. The ones that were clearly AI.
There was something about that made me that almost gave me the vibe that like Vivy was going to start like her own like music group of like AI or something. But I was like, no, it's going to be Vivy like herself.
Yeah, it was very clearly a progression of sorts as well. You could tell that there was it goes from like one to like the others here. Like you see there's a lot of like, they're very clearly different.
With very particular designs and everything, yeah.
Yeah, but they also have very human, like emotional looking poses here. Like at this one here where Vivy's singing and then it starts heading towards the sun and there's characters flashing through here.
Oh, yeah.
Those all basically feel like the ones that she's going to save.
Sure.
But
on the way to her becoming her final self.
And then it shows her
final mission and everything.
With the cape and everything.
Yeah.
And
a very serious look.
A very serious look, but also this is exactly the cape, like with the fur and everything, that she had in the beginning of episode 1. When she was like all bruised and dirty and stuff and like going through the hallway.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah. I am interested to see if they can do a little bit more with getting me to emotionally connect with the AI that will be in these mini arcs, though, if that's the way they do this. Because given that they have such a limited amount of time,
2 episodes is not a lot.
It's not a lot. I feel like you need to simplify the story even more than this one, though.
Right.
Because the backstory was cool, but I almost feel like because they had a clone, you had to introduce another character all over again rather than just giving meta context to Estella. So I'm hoping that they can improve upon this formula with future ones.
Yeah. So a few thoughts on that. One, I really liked the idea of it being a clone. Like, even though it did cause some like issues as far as like how the episodes are structured timing wise and everything.
Yeah, they had to stop things and exposit about the past. Yeah,
because there were a lot of idiosyncrasies and discrepancies with how Estella was acting from the previous episode that didn't make sense, and that's why we were going like we even talked about the idea of like some kind of like schism in her personality, right? Because that's the only way we could rectify it, right? And so that maybe it was going to be go along the angle of the emotional breaking of her as an AI, and that's why it went this way. But
this is a much like more clean, I would say.
Yeah, it's cleaner, but it does take more time, right?
Yeah.
Because you do kind of have to introduce a new character, and this episode, even though it was part of that, like it's the part 2 of the previous episode for the arc, it felt like a very different episode as far as what it focused on and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could totally see it being something where as the show goes on, the formula gets a lot more straightforward because we're used to, 15 years in the future or something like that. Here's the situation, chop, chop, let's get to it. You know, you could even have it be kind of meta with Matsumoto being like, we're on the clock, hurry up. It took me so long to get over here because I didn't know how to find you. I thought that, I didn't realize.
Me with some girl or
whatever. Right,
exactly.
exactly.
And then she gave me to her kids,
Yeah. No, it was actually 40 years in the future. Shit.
That's a good point. Yeah, just because the previous time skip was 15 years doesn't mean that there's going to be any regularity to the time skips at all.
Now, if
the next one could be literally in 3 years or like something like that.
Now 15 years for every 2 episodes, that does match up kind of nicely with getting to 100 years by the end of the show. But yeah, it's not like all the important AI events are going to be every 15 years like clockwork unless they were planned.
Unless it's not that they are actually, the kind of thing that is an
Coincidence.
Coincidence. It's actually that the consciousness of AI in general is testing things.
Oh, also, just crazy, silly theory. What if Matsumoto wasn't actually sent back to save humanity? What if he was sent back to ensure that the AI rise to power? Because you have no way of knowing who sent him back in time. And the stuff could also show, hey, AI are so awesome, right? They're able to solve all these things, avert disasters. We should give them more control. I don't think that's what it is.
That's
but
possible.
I just want to throw it out there because
it's possible. It's possible.
It could totally be it.
Yeah, and that the thing that Matsumoto is trying to do is to accelerate the evolution of AI. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he accelerates it even faster than it would have gone through.
And there's this superhero AI that is a paragon for all of humanity of how awesome AI can be.
Yeah. The weird thing though with that is it gets into the idea of where
if he wanted to do that, why couldn't he just do it in 10 years?
Well, no, it's the idea of if Matsumoto was sent back in time to change the future, the second that was done, most likely, depending on the way that they rule their time travel
splits or changes
or whatever.
It
could never happen again. The future would
Yeah.
change unless, and this is the weird thing here, and this is a kind of a meta thing about time travel. If it didn't work, then they could send Matsumoto back again and do it again.
Right. Well, and they wouldn't even know that it didn't work necessarily.
Well, no, but they could come to the same conclusion and do it again, which means that by the definition of having time travel, both of their missions are going to succeed.
Right. Well, okay.
100% guaranteed. Well, not only that they're going to succeed necessarily, but that if Matsumoto's mission is actually a twist thing to, no, I'm here to accelerate AI's evolution. I was sent back by the AI collective. I was sent back to help you.
Yeah.
What? I don't care about you. No, you're just a blueprint upon which the AI will be utilized to become the next stage of humanity. Yeah, that could actually be the case, and that's why Vivy in the beginning of the first episode
is all scuffed
up and everything. Is she's been fighting AI just to try and get to the point where she can sing to whoever of humanity is left, and AI as well. So that all being there, in some ways, there's this kind of fun meta thing of why is this story being told? It's because it's the one that's the most interesting to tell,
Right, yeah. This is the timeline that,
But the other reason is, why are we doing a time travel story? It's because this is the timeline that works. Yeah.
Right. Because you don't want to just have 8 iterations that are just reanimated, of all the failed.
Reanimated, though, that sounds hard.
Sounds really
maybe we
hard.
shouldn't have actually any new animation.
That sounds like no, completely reanimated. Just make it be the same things. Anyways,
Right.
Point is, one of the things that I'm actually kind of curious about, because I've thought about this a little bit, but I want to know what you think about this. Is with the whole thing of going back into the past to change the future and all that stuff, right? There's the one where you go back and then it actually changes the timeline because there's just the one timeline, right? And that's a bit more straightforward. And then as soon as Matsumoto goes back, none of the AI from the future will be able to do anything because it's already been changed, right?
Yep.
But if it's on the divergent pathways, right, where every time something changes, it's just a different timeline that gets created, basically. The timeline where, Matsumoto never got sent back. The timeline where Vivy was able to save this person versus wasn't, right? All of that stuff. Then theoretically, could you have AI from the original timeline
still sending
stuff back further than Matsumoto got sent back to go back on the chain?
But the thing was, as part of the premise of this, and I feel like this was done to solve that problem from a writing perspective, was Matsumoto saying that you are the earliest we can go back. Because you're the first autonomous
AI. Right, because they
AI.
can't actually send back physical objects. They can send back data.
They can send back data.
And she is the one that actually is autonomous, so the core programming won't get in the way and all that stuff.
Yep.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So in some ways, the writer was like, I've thought of that. And this is why we won't have that happen.
Because otherwise there'd be time travel going back to, right. And
so therefore, the thing that's potentially the most, antsy about this is that if Vivy was the best bet, basically, then this is the only only way that it could work, basically.
Right.
There is no better plan or better alternative. The buck stops here with Vivy and Matsumoto. Regardless of whether or not they fail their missions or succeed or have secret missions or what have you that are deep in their programming or whatever.
Yep.
This is it.
Right.
This is it. Now, I very much think that it's going to succeed. I think that a Matsumoto twist thing totally feels like it's
like it could be happen,
warranted.
but it doesn't have to, you know.
But I'm more excited about the circumstances by which Vivy is singing, rather than whether or not her singing is going to work.
Right, because when it comes right down to it, and like we're not really worried about whether Vivy will survive any of her encounters, right? It's not about what obstacles she has to overcome. It's about what those obstacles represent
and what they teach her.
Yeah,
she
exactly.
learns who she is by the end of the series.
Because this is going to be resolved by a song, not by a battle, right?
And also, will she even believe in this whole mission and everything by the point that she gets there?
AI discovers nihilism. Yeah.
Well, like in some reason, like one of the ideas that they're all slaves to their missions, basically. So in some ways, if Vivy wants to set humanity free, and almost in some ways AI free, she needs to do away with missions. Like, missions in general are probably one of the things that cause AI to go rampant.
Watch. She gives all AI a new mission. Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes.
Yeah.
But yeah, y'all be excellent to each other, party on, dudes. And if you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and any level of support that gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.